Hi, welcome to another video from Fresh Faces New Ideas. I'm David, and this is the channel. So, once again, please, I ask everyone to, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you're not subscribed, my YouTube channel is Fresh Faces New Ideas. You can follow me on Twitter at Face Ideas, and that's how you follow me. If you have questions, leave a comment here. You can ask me questions on Twitter. So this is part of the new format of videos. The way I'm doing it now is during the week I'm going to do 15-20 minute videos ish about what's like different topics about what's currently happening, go into them with a little more depth and focus. And then on Fridays we're going to do live stream Fridays. Around 1 I'm going to do about an hour or so of live streaming, covering the big topics, and then following whatever was happening Thursday into Friday night. So that's how it's going to be for the future. So this video is going to be on the different plans for minimum wage. So currently, right now, there's 3 separate options for how the minimum wage will go forward. There's Bernie, what he's pushing for through budget reconciliation. There's what's Joe Manchin's kind of willing to accept for budget reconciliation. This is what they're still arguing about currently. If they get the go ahead from the parliamentarian, that budget reconciliation allows them to push for a $15 minimum wage or any type of minimum wage hike. And then there's the Mitt Romeny, Josh Hawley bill to push for minimum wage. So let's just go over them from the worst to best. So there's the Josh Hawley, Mitt Romney minimum wage bill. So the way this one is, it's a $10 minimum wage hike. So it would be, the minimum wage would then go into $10, and this is over till 2025, and it would be split based on whether you're a regular worker, whether you're a small business worker, or whether you're a minor. That will depend on, they have scales for that. The problem with this is a whole bunch of things. First, the original push for $10 minimum wage started in 2013. So by the time this would have ultimately taken into effect, it would be literally more than a decade later. And this is on top of the fact that we haven't had a minimum wage increase since 2009. So since 2009 to 2025, the minimum wage would have been $7.25, and then it would end at $10. Now, some of the other problems with this. One, for those of you who don't know, Josh Hawley, who's the senator of Arkansas, their minimum wage is currently $11. And the reason it's $11 is because they put it on a ballot. They put it on a ballot measure, and it passed. And for those of you who happened to miss this during the actual election in 2020, Florida also joined a whole bunch of other states in saying that we want a $15 minimum wage, and they put that on a budget resolution for the election as well. And this was part of why Joe Biden lost Florida, is he didn't push for a $15 minimum wage. He said he was for it, but he didn't push for it. That could have won him Florida as well. So there's that. So the other problem with this is it's a lot of it's tied to E-Verify. So the goal is to make sure that people aren't hiring undocumented immigrants in order to take jobs from other people. But the penalties are not strict enough on the actual corporation. So this is the problem with the overall idea of they're coming to take your jobs, is that the people who are being hired for these low wages are hired by these companies. They're not hired because they're saying, "Oh, I'm just going to work for less." They're hired that way by the company. So when they do these raids, these ICE raids, and you see them, they raid these meat packing plants and they arrest 100 people. They're like, "Look, they're getting rid of all these illegal immigrants who've stolen all these jobs." But it's the people who are suffering, not the people who hired them. And that's ultimately the problem. And while this bill does have some good things that ultimately should be incorporated later, it is just too little for the time and in what we need right now. So what should happen with this bill? It should be defeated. I don't think it'll even come to the floor. They have no reason to bring it to the floor. But some of the things that boost the E-Verify system and some of the protections that it gives for documented immigrants, and some of the stipulations that it has against these corporations for when they hire undocumented immigrants should be put into future legislation. The other problem is that it's just too low. So Josh Hawley is currently saying that in Arkansas, you're making too much money even though you voted to have an $11 an hour wage, and for the people who make $15 an hour, you have way too much money. And keep in mind, the salary for the senators for an hour is like $83 an hour because they make $175,000 a year. So they make a ton of money, and they're arguing whether or not you deserve to get like $4 extra an hour. So then let's go to the middle ground. So Joe Manchin is currently arguing, I don't want a $15 minimum wage for the country because West Virginians are fine with having they're fine with having an $11 minimum wage. So because we can survive in West Virginia on $11 minimum wage, people in California and people in New York who can't even really, make it on even $15, they don't deserve to get $15 anyway because that's how it is in West Virginia. So there's so many problems with this. The solution to it is it's seemingly very simple. You very simply say to him, are you going to vote down this bill if there is a $15 minimum wage? And if he says yes, well, then you make sure that everybody knows the reason that the COVID package failed and the fact that there is no minimum wage increase, which is vastly supported by the American people, is because of Joe Manchin. And because he decided that you weren't worth $15 an hour. And not only that, it's the other more cynical solution to that. I mean, that's the overall like super nuclear option. I think the other option is say, look, Joe, if you believe that the minimum wage in West Virginia should be $11, then we will have this bill say that everywhere but West Virginia, it is $15 an hour. And you can explain to your constituents why it's lower there than it is everywhere else. And keep in mind, West Virginia workers, they had a phone call with Joe Manchin. They had a big Zoom call arguing, this is part of the fight for 15. And he was like, yeah, you still only deserve 11. So, you got to put him out there and make it, he has to be able to defend his stake on this. So that's where it is there. So you just got to pressure him as much as you can in order to get him to be the one to cave. And then let's go finally to the best bill. The best bill is Bernie Sanders' bill. Bernie Sanders' bill would push it for 5 years, would push to $15 an hour. So the coverage for the Hawley Romney bill would help 3.2 million workers, which, that sounds like a pretty good number. The Bernie Sanders $15 minimum wage would help 32 million workers. So it's literally 10 times as effective. And study after study has shown that you give people money and it will help grow the economy. We have over 50 years of proof that trickle-down economics doesn't work. We have a ton of proof that all of these different incentives of just giving tax cuts to the rich does not trickle down. But if you give people money at the bottom, trickle up works, trickle down doesn't. So we have all of this proof for that. Furthermore, in the Josh Hawley and the Mitt Romney bill, one of the things they mentioned is this 1.4 million job loss figure that is being cited by the Office of Budget Management, or the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office scored this. But like I've explained time and time again, that is not an accurate description of how many jobs are going to be lost. One, because it doesn't encompass how many jobs will be gained. It does not account for people who are working for multiple jobs, and it does not. And it had changed it changed how the study was done in the first place in order to have it look like a bigger impact. So, and it doesn't impact how many people it's going to help lift out of poverty and the impact on the economy. So look, it is very clear that a $15 minimum wage is the compromise, because if you tied it to inflation, it should be much higher than it is right now, because we haven't had an increase since, as I mentioned, 2009. We won't get an increase, the final increase till about 2025 is where the target looks to be for that. And the push for this has to be in this bill, because it doesn't look like they're going to be able to push Manchin and Sinema in order to get the filibuster removed down to, so that they could pass regular bills. They would need the 60 vote threshold. And while yes, the argument against $15 minimum wage or any type of minimum wage hike, because the Republicans refuse to allow it, is a good argument, and it should in theory devastate the Republican Party. But you never know; they'll just lie and say we were protecting all your jobs and all of that. But if you can get it in this bill, there's no reason that you shouldn't. You should push as hard as you can to get everything you can in this bill, because this is the big one. This is where the most amount of Joe Biden's policies are going to be able to get through because they're able to tie it through budget reconciliation. There's not going to be anything that the Republican Party can ultimately do to stop it. At this point, the only people who are going to hold back more from this COVID relief bill are the Democrats, and whether they actually choose to allow themselves to be held back. Like I probably mentioned before, the parliamentarian who gets to decide on this Byrd rule can be overruled by Kamala Harris. So even if he decides, because basically what happens is Bernie and his group make an argument for why it should be, and then somebody else makes an argument why it shouldn't be, and then he makes a decision. But Kamala Harris it's only a suggestion. So Kamala Harris can ultimately overrule that in order to make it part of this budget anyway. So this idea that the $15 minimum wage is something that could be left on the cutting room floor is ridiculous. There's no reason for the Democrats to not push as hard as they can for $15 minimum wage, because it's what the people want. And the goal right now is to get as many people to see that government can work, or that while you're pushing for the things you want and that the people want that are overwhelmingly popular, you show them who's actually fighting against them. You show them every single time. The message should be very clear. We want to help states. We want to help schools. We want to help people. We want to help the American public. And this is, look, you start with this fight. You say, look, we're giving you, COVID relief. We're giving you $15 minimum wage, and here's why. And then you go on to the John Lewis Voting Act in order to help protect the democracy so that people's votes can count more. And then you tie this into gerrymandering. You tie it into how things got so bad in Texas. You tie this into a whole bunch of other things. But right now, the $15 minimum wage fight is very important because it's we need to be able to have our workers, have a wage that they can survive on. So the three options, once again, are Mitt Romney and Josh Hawley's push for $10 minimum wage, which is, once again, less than Josh Hawley's current state's minimum wage. There's Joe Manchin, who's arguing the whole country should have 11 because that's what it is. It would be fine in West Virginia. And then there's Birdie's pushing for $15. So that's those. If you have any more questions or if you want me to dive deeper into this, please let me know. Once again, please like and subscribe, and please follow me on Twitter. My hashtag is @FaceIdeas. Thank you very much.